Hello Sip Squad, today we're going to be breaking down the kit of the new 4-star unit Candace. Candace is the first Hydro polearm character to be introduced from the game. Despite her element and weapon combo being highly discussed among the community, her kit ended up leaving much to be desired. However, she may be waiting for just the right DPS unit to match with her. We'll discuss who these pairs might be later in the video, but for now, let's just go over Candace's kit. Candace's normal attack, Gleaming Spear Guardian Stance, performs up to 4 consecutive spear strikes. Her charge attack consumes stamina and she lunges forward, dealing damage to enemies. Lastly, for her plunging attack, Candace plunges to the ground, dealing damage to enemies along the path and dealing AoE damage upon impact. Candace's elemental skill Sacred Rite Hero and Sanctum has a tap and a hold function. Tapping the skill makes her rush forward with her shield, dealing hydro damage to enemies in front of her. If you hold her skill, her shield blocks enemy damage and forms a barrier that absorbs damage based on her max HP. This barrier absorbs hydro damage 250% more effectively, and lasts until the skill is unleashed. After holding the skill for some time, Candace will finish charging and upon release, skill duration expiration, or when the barrier breaks, she performs a leaping strike that deals hydro damage to enemies in front of her. When casting Candace's elemental burst Sacred Rite Wagtail's Tide, she raises her weapon and calls upon a Divine Blessing, dealing AoE hydro damage based on her max HP and continuously grants the Prayer of the Crimson Crown effect on the active character. The Prayer of the Crimson Crown effect has the following properties. Characters deal increased damage with their normal attacks. Whenever a character takes the field, they will unleash a rippling wave of water dealing hydro damage to nearby opponents. Up to 3 waves can be triggered during the burst duration. And lastly, Sword, Claymore, and Polearm wielding characters under this effect will obtain a Hydro Infusion. For talent priorities, it is best to level her burst first as it provides infusion and team buffing to normal and charged attacks, followed by her skill. Her normal attacks are lackluster and are not worth leveling unless you really want to. Now let's move on to Candace's passives. Her Ascension 1 passive, Aegis of Crossed Arrows, finishes her skill's charge instantly if she is hit by an attack while holding her elemental skill. For her Ascension 4 passive, Celestial Dome of Sand, characters affected by the Prayer of the Crimson Crown effect during Candace's elemental burst have their damage increased by 0.5% of every 1000 points of Candace's max HP when dealing elemental damage with normal attacks. Characters such as Ayato can easily use this passive. Lastly, her passive, Dawn's First Light, decreases climbing stamina consumption by 20%, making exploration slightly easier. This does not stack with other passives that give the same effects. Candace's Constellations don't really do much for her overall usefulness aside from her C1 and C6. However, we'll still overview all of her constellations. Her C1 increases her burst duration by 3 seconds. Her C2 increases Candace's max HP by 20% for 15 seconds if her elemental skill hits enemies. C3 and C5 increase her skill and burst levels by 3 respectively. C4 shortens her elemental skill's hold cooldown from 9 seconds to 6 seconds, which is about the same timer as her tap cooldown. For Candace's C6, for characters affected by the Prayer of the Crimson Crown effect from her burst who deal elemental damage to enemies using normal attacks, an attack wave unleashes and deals AoE hydro damage equal to about 15% of Candace's max HP. This effect can trigger once every 2.3 seconds and is considered elemental burst damage. Do note that Candace herself will not be affected by this. For weapons, the immediate go-to option is the 3-star weapon Black Tassel, since it is easy to get, has HP percent as its substat, and is very good for low investment builds. Because it is the only HP percent subset polearm, her other options revolve around ER due to her high energy needs. Weapons like Favonius Lance, the Catch, and Skyward Spine are good alternatives. Some other weapons that you could also use are Wavebreaker's Fin and Prototype Star Glitter for a more DPS oriented build. For artifacts, her best sets include 4-piece Noblesse Oblige and 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. You could also do a 2-piece Heart of Depth plus 2-piece Tenacity, Noblesse, or Emblem of Severed Fate. Another option is 4-piece Deepwood, but this is only if she's just using this set as a placeholder for the 4-piece passive. Her main stats should be all HP percent, although for her sands, you can opt for ER if you struggle with burst regeneration during rotations or are running Black Tassel as her weapon. Energy needs vary depending on her teams. If you're running Candace with double Hydro, you should aim for around 220% energy recharge. Without double Hydro, this rises to about 250%. If you use Favonius Lance on her, then her energy requirements drop to between 180 and 200%. Candace as a unit functions best as a support infuser. Though she doesn't shine in a lot of teams, there are still teams that she does fine in. Such teams include Mono Hydro, Fridge, and Hyperbloom. Characters like Kuki Shinobu or Yamiko saw the light again when Dendro reactions brought Electro back into the meta, but the real star here was Kaching, of course, with Aggravate. formerly claimed the quote worst 5-star DPS, can now compete with even the newest characters as long as you have Dendro Traveler at her side. So now begs the question, is Candace the quote worst 4-star support unit? While this is debatable, it is safe to say she doesn't really pair well with anyone. Her easiest pair is with Ayato and characters similar to him. Despite it being an interesting combination, it's for sure that it will not last long. So what does Candace need to stop downgrading the majority of the team comps that she is in? Where is her missing partner? It could be coming from the new and mysterious Alhaitham or the anticipated Pyro Claymore Dehya. Nothing has been officially revealed about kit information from these two, but we do know what their weapons and elements are. At the very least, either of them would need to have a kit that applies their element off-field while also being considered normal attacks like Yoimiya and Ayato's kits. With Alhaitham, this would mean a Bloom and by extension Hyper Bloom team, which isn't very new for Nilo havers, but it is possible that Hoyoverse will surprise us with a new mechanic to his kit. The real possibility is with Dehya, who they could turn into a burning DPS unit, and by extension with Candace, she would bring the Burgeon reaction to the spotlight, which has only been talked about thanks to the likes of Toma. Until we get closer to Alhaitham's and Dehya's release, we will not know if either of them will be optimal partners for her, but let's hope that our first Hydro Polearm is not being wasted. And that concludes this kit breakdown. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Also be sure to join the Sip Squad Discord as we have character sheets and channels to help with your builds. Thank you for watching.